Anxiety obviously has a deep and debilitating effect on our lives. And one thing that I used to love doing, but was heavily impacted by my anxiety, was driving. What used to be pure joy for me most of the time, was now an everyday trigger. Just the thought of stepping into a car, and I was immediately flooded with stress and anxiety symptoms. My hands would get sweaty, I would feel my chest tighten up, my heart beating fast and strong, and many more of the typical symptoms that you probably heard of or even experienced yourself. It wasn't even that uncommon that I would get full-blown panic attacks during the drive. Suddenly all the sounds around me were super intense and loud. My eyes seemed to be jumping around from second to second, focusing on different things without really focusing on anything in particular. And of course, this extreme feeling of dread and doom overcame me. Plus I had this feeling of excess energy flooding through my body. And the only way I could cope with it was to tense up my whole body, because stuck in the car there wasn't much I could do. At this stage I had to find the next possibility for a safe stop and hope for it to pass. And if it did pass, it wouldn't be the end of it all. Because what I was left with was the question if all the symptoms I just experienced were actually a sign of something more serious, like a stroke, heart attack, or something of that sort. And this question would stick in my head for days, weeks, or even months. If you're here watching this video, I guess that you're going through the same, or at least something very similar. And I always believe that knowing what and why something is happening to you is the basis for eventually recovering from all of this. So the first thing you have to know is that your body and mind react this way because it has learned to respond so extremely, just to keep you safe. With an anxiety disorder, your general stress levels are elevated basically all the time, and the tiniest amount of additional stress can tip you right over from being highly stressed to having full-blown panic attacks. And as you know, driving can be very stressful. It's just that without our anxiety disorder, this additional stress wouldn't really affect us that much, as we still have enough of a tolerance for new stress without it presenting itself with some of the more intense symptoms. And every time you have one of these attacks, your mind tends to associate and internalize this reaction with your surroundings. So if you were having a panic attack in a car and had this urgent need to get out of the situation, but couldn't because obviously you can't jump out of the moving car, your mind wants to do you a favor and imprints the car as a source of danger. Back in the day, this made complete sense. Just imagine you were walking around the jungle and you spot a cave full of tigers. You will of course immediately react and try to get out of there as fast as possible. And the next time you see that or any other similar cave, your mind will be immediately very alert so that you can react a lot faster or even avoid the cave altogether. It's just the same thing with the car, only that this extreme reaction is kind of out of place and unnecessary. So let's get to the part on how you can overcome this fear and the over-responsive nervous system when it comes to driving. Well, the basic thing you should be doing is managing your stress levels altogether. The lower you get your general stress levels, the less triggers you'll face that can set off intense anxiety. I talk about the anxiety recovery fundamentals a lot here on this channel, so that's why in this video I'll just link to the video up here. If you want to find out more about what I believe is the best approach to manage stress, I highly recommend watching those videos. But in the case of very targeted and specific learned fears, like this one, your main goal should be to show your brain that the fear is out of place. You can practice this from your home without even stepping into a car. Just visualize yourself driving calmly and in peace without all the panic you now have. Try to remember some of the great experiences you had on the road, like a road trip with friends or that one time you went for a cruise along the coast with those amazing views. Do this little exercise every time before you step into a car. It's not an instant fix, but you can slowly rewire your brain by doing this. Also, what has worked great for me was to connect the act of driving with something very pleasant. Let's say I was craving a delicious burger from that one joint. I would get into the car and tell myself that at the end of the trip I'll get to have that delicious burger. Whatever it is, always try to associate driving with something pleasant. And to make it even easier, I suggest to put on some uplifting music. And what has worked even better for me were these intense and empowering motivational speeches you can find all over YouTube. I don't know how they do it, but they really do give me that boost of energy and motivation to tackle my fears. Thanks for watching everyone, and if you're new here and want to see more anxiety related content just like this one, consider subscribing.